Everyone wants more money, but most of us weren't taught how to create an abundant life. That's where the law of attraction, manifesting success stories show comes in. If you are ready to have more money, create more freedom, and experience more fun, turn the volume up. It's time to learn how to create the prosperity and life you have been dreaming of. Here's your host, Cassie Parks.
Hello and welcome to this episode. I am your host, Cassie Parks, and I am back with Mia for her 11th interview in the Years of Growth series. Welcome, Mia.
Nice to be here, Cassie, always.
Yeah, I'm excited. We have lots to talk about today, lots of cool things. We always have cool things to talk about, but I'm excited about what's on the agenda today. But first, what's awesome?
My puppy Luna, who's had a little laceration on her ribs and back, finally got the last staples pulled out today, so she's almost absolutely free. She still has a little scab that has to heal up, but she can be active. She's a pointer, and she just we have to, when you got an injury like that with the dog, it's like, be quiet. You have to keep them quiet. So
yeah,
it's just so great to have her back.
Oh, yay!
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. Cool. Well, let's start with this because I think it was really fun. In our last interview, we had talked about, you had just kind of not been trading because you weren't inspired, and it just didn't feel good. And then I was super fun to see, I went into the community a little while later or a day later, and it was like, I had a trade and it was profitable. So tell us a little bit about that. Was it just inspired? Yeah. How did it happen?
It was definitely inspired, and I think I had been trading very well last summer, and about the end of summer, I started to get a little too calculated about it, and kind of put the same trades on and not wait for inspiration, and I ended up overall profitable last year, but I had a couple of like really big losing trades, like 20 grand, at a crack. And like I say, I ended up a little profitable, but it was like, wow, and so I did a couple trades early this year and they went okay. And then I just didn't feel it. So I wasn't doing it. And after we talked on that last interview, boom, it came right to me. And I just started out small and just one trade at a time instead of putting 4 trades on at a time. And it just not being greedy. It's not really greedy, but kind of calculating. That's what it really comes down to.
Yeah.
It's like, how do I make this much money? It's like, that's not the way it happens, Mia. You know this. And so when I let it flow, it's so much better and easier, like it was when I first really started to do it on a regular basis. So I'm building my trades, my trade size back up in the options part. And it's not like I wasn't paying attention to the market. I mean, I knew what was going on with the market the whole time. It just wasn't the right thing for me. But when it was right, it was right. So,
yay.
Yeah.
I love that. And so
good
much
lesson.
Yeah,
good lesson.
Right?
Yeah.
Huge lesson. And I think that pause is a great lesson. Like there's so many LOA lessons, I think, in that. It's like so often when somebody starts law of attraction, like they have so much success, but then it's that calculating that they try and do and they can't repeat it. Well, the reason they had success, the reason you had success is because it was inspired, it was fun, you weren't calculating so much, you were just being smart but inspired, right? Versus trying to hit a number.
Right.
And then sort of that let go phase and coming back a little bit at a time as it feels good and fun. Like it's so applicable to LOA.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's really funny because my partner, Tracy, she says, Mia, do you remember when it was just so fun? You'd go and you'd make money and you'd transfer the money out of your brokerage account into the checking account. It was just like, woohoo, and it says, she goes, this, it hasn't been that way for a while. And I said, what do you mean it hasn't been that way for a while? Everything's going great. And I'm like, it's so sick sometimes. The brain just doesn't get the message, comes at you from all places and you're still not getting it. But when you get it good. So.
Yeah. And we always get to start again, right? Like you said,
yes.
Like you were profitable, right? It doesn't matter if it's $1, it's $1. If it's $100,000, like it's profitable, right? And you get to start again, and we get to remember those things. And so often I think that pause, that stepping back, is what lets us see the things that were working again.
Yeah, definitely the things that were working and why they were working. But it was also valuable to have those lessons of because most people have loss aversion. You know, they just
Hmm.
don't want to lose any money no matter what they do. And that's when they get cold feet and they just decide, 9 to 5 sounds pretty good. I'll just stick with the regular paycheck kind of thing. But you have to lose, I mean, and
Hmm.
you might not have to realize all your losses, but you have to be willing to see losses. And so that was an important lesson that came out. And I also feel like I'm just that much more foundational, with where I am with the LOA, having gone through that, kind of stepping off the path or, um, it's really been helpful because when you get back on, you're a little bit more stable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yay. Oh, I love that. Um, Very fun. So I want to switch gears a little bit. And so you just did, well, it was about 2 weeks ago, your second Future Self workshop.
Yes.
Tell us
Yes.
about that. What was different? What you loved? What was.
Well, I mean, you can definitely hear in the Enchanted Circle when anybody does anything for the second time, whether
Mhm.
it be Manifest 10K or whether it be a workshop. Again, it's just like the trading example. Everything goes so much deeper, and the lights start to click on, and stuff. You go, how could I miss this the first time? Well, never mind. Whatever happened, happened. I only got this much, and I got this much more this time. And it was just it was so much clarity for me. And I know the first one was too, and I just had to be ready for this next level. But it
Mhm.
definitely hit that next level for me.
Oh, I love that. And I think we always get, but we have two examples right now. Like we get such in a hurry, and often that space is what gets us ready, right? It was the space between the first one and second one, because I think it'd been a year, which is awesome. And is actually perfect timing. I now know for future self workshops, and that space stepping away from trading, right? It prepares us for that deeper level, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to know that there's a reason for everything
Hmm.
that is going on the way it's going on. It doesn't need to be boom. I mean, that's the calculating part, right? Boom, boom, boom. I do this, 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 and this, and um, you, if you let it be a little bit more organic, it sinks in, and you get so much more.
Absolutely. What was your biggest aha or realization or opening?
Realizing that two of my really important feelings were peace and vulnerability. And
Mhm.
for me, I tend to be a strong person. Maybe not an overance of pride and ego, but definitely that is there.
Mhm.
And I definitely, hold that and want to defend it. And um, I had already gotten signals that, the only time you can really have real power
Mhm.
is to be vulnerable at the same time, to have both sides of the coin. Um, and also, I think what I'm feeling is to get access to any other feelings. If you're not vulnerable, if you don't let yourself be vulnerable to having your feelings, you never get to the real ones, ever, ever.
Yep.
And so I mean, between the workshop and the universe dropping little pebbles on my head, I had realized, it came very clear to me during the workshop that this was something that needed to be worked on. But again, you can't just go, okay, need to work on it. Boom, boom, boom. Because, we just had a call yesterday where, for the first time, I was really showing my full vulnerability on a phone call,
Mhm.
and you even talked about it, you mentioned it, and it's so true.
Mhm.
I try and learn from other people, and I'm over here, and I might have an awesome or something, but it's really important to share at that level, to have another breakthrough of any sort.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I want to highlight for listeners, like you're absolutely right. Like if you're only allowed to feel so much, you can't get to the other feelings. You can't get that depth. And
Yeah.
and showing that, being vulnerable and, you know, open when stuff isn't peachy is a really good example of, you know, because
Yeah.
I think it's easy for a lot of people to share. Most people, some people do have even a hard time sharing the good stuff, but it's easier to share a lot of times when it's, oh, I made this, I did this is awesome, this is happening. But it's a little harder to share when it's not awesome, and we need that support.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what happens. You get support. I mean, there was, I think it was Becky that typed in, Mia, that was awesome. And I've done that before too. There's
Mhm.
people, I love the people who share, and they really go deep. And, I think sometimes, God, I would never tell anybody this, it's like, I wouldn't do that. Oh my God. But now I am starting to feel different,
Yeah.
about that. And I always feel like I say, hey, I always put in the chat, oh God, thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
That really helped me, and
Yeah.
so that's also it's not only by being vulnerable can you start to feel your own feelings, but you can have true empathy for other people.
Mhm.
And that it's not sympathy, it's empathy. You really see yourself in those shoes, even though it might be a slightly different situation. You go, oh, that's kind of a story that I have, and blah blah, so
Mhm.
it's also having empathy for others. You can't really have that unless you have true vulnerability.
Absolutely. And that's something you wanted deeper in, I picked up in, that your future self has. Not even that you wanted.
Yes.
She has that deeper empathy, that deeper connection for being able to relate to people, which does require that vulnerability.
Right, absolutely. You think again, if you're being calculating, you think all I have to do is work on being a good listener and put myself in other people's shoes. But if you don't have your own vulnerability, you can't really truly do that. You just
Hmm.
can't. Because if you're not in touch with your feelings, how can you really start to be in touch with anybody else's?
Absolutely. What was there any shift you noticed in yourself after you shared and were open for support?
Uh, it it felt like I was ready to move forward,
Mm.
because I had been stalling, if you will, or a little stuck, um, and just thinking, God, if I just let enough time go by, it'll all pass, and mm, but will it pass the way you want it to pass? I mean, that's the thing. Do you want
Hmm.
it to happen the way you want it, or do you want it to happen not quite the way you want it? So it felt like a little blockade got removed, in that there was, instead of having a day go by going, I know I did this, what else did I do? Now it's like boom, 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 without feeling like, I scheduled 20 minutes for this and 20. It's just like everything falls into things, and you're going like, well, I'm done with that. Why don't I go with this now?
Hmm.
Constructive stuff. So it really feels like a block was removed.
Awesome. That's amazing. How does it
Yeah,
feel?
it feels great. I mean, it feels really awesome.
Yeah. I think things like that are hardest the first time, and it's like, oh, okay, I can do that. Like this, and because we get to that other side, the awesome, the flowing, the all the other stuff that comes with it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you don't just put your little toes in the water, but you dive in, you find how nice the water is. It's really nice. It's really,
Yes,
really nice to spend some time there.
absolutely. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so do we want to talk more specifics about sort of your knee and what that felt and how that brought up vulnerability?
Yeah. So I took a good slip and fall about 2 weeks before we had the workshop. And
Hmm.
so I was on the mend, but not even close to there yet. Um, but I was feeling good. But there is definitely, for me, not to be fully present physically, to have an injury like that, is a lot of vulnerability, a lot.
Hmm.
And you know, it just got handed to me. You don't get to give that back.
Hmm.
And so I was, I was in pretty much denial. And I knew I wanted to get it back at least to a place where it wasn't swollen, it wasn't painful, and see how far I could get it. But every time I really tested any kind of rotational stuff or any kind of back pressure stuff, I felt exactly what I know to be, because I've had an ACL reconstruction on the same knee almost 20 years ago. And I know exactly what it feels like when it's not right, and it's not painful. It's not even painful. It's just like, oh my God, this is not good. You have to really tweak it to sprain it again and get swelling, but it's like, this is not right. And I was still in denial, but more and more is kind of coming to the surface. It's like, you're not going to make it better. I mean, ACLs are one of those things, they're in a capsule so they don't heal like some of the other ligaments do. You got to do something if you want to fix it. So I brought it to the call finally. Tracy and I have been talking about it. I finally, even before the call, I shared some of my fears. She's been giving me little pokes, but she doesn't push too hard. And I shared some of my fears about how, man, I don't want to be injured, number one, like this. And number two, I don't want to have downtime, and I don't want to have to go through surgeries, and I don't want to have to go through rehab. I don't want to blah, blah. And what if the surgery is not successful this time? And are they even going to want to? I mean, I felt this way when I was 40, when I had it before. I thought, God, I'm 40. They're probably not even going to want to do this. And the doctor's like, dude, we got to do it. Do you want to, how many knee replacements do you want to have during your lifetime? We need to do it. And so I'm going back to those old fears of, but I'm 58 now. Are they going to, it's like, yeah, they are, because they don't want you to get a knee replacement if you don't need it, period. And for sure, they want to put it off as long as they can. And it won't be the case if you don't get it. So, but still, it's a fear, right?
Right.
So you have to get it out there, because if it doesn't get out, it just, you bottle it up and you. So then on the call, I was able to share everything, and it just felt very vulnerable. It feels one thing to share with your partner, hard enough. Fully share, but to share with everybody, even though I know how supporting the Enchanted Circle was, but it was the best thing. Like I said, it kind of opened the floodgates. Now I can move forward, and things will happen. And interestingly, my dog got her laceration about a week or so after I got mine. So we're both like down for the count, like, and we're the ones that are always running around, going off the walls. And we're all like, man, can I do something? Nope. No. So it's nice to see her come back. And I feel like I'm coming back and moving forward, which is the most important thing. But sharing in the Enchanted Circle was a very big part of it, because as I said before, it's hard enough for me to share, and I love Tracy, and we share a lot of things. She went through my first surgery with me. I had a couple of different surgeries, and she was very supportive of me then, as she is now. But even still, my little pride and ego is like, I'm not gonna, and now I'm gonna, I gotta share the fear. And I did that with the community too, and that it really opened the floodgates. Because you do need a supportive atmosphere, you can't just go off and start telling people on the street what's wrong.
Right.
It just doesn't work,
Yeah. It doesn't have the same effect, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
I just had some visions of that.
That's funny, because when I did the first time, I remember I was off of crutches within a couple of weeks, and we went to the Scottish Fair in Alameda, and we were walking around, and there's a Scottish dancer. I mean, these guys, and he's like, I was in shorts. He said, you had your ACL done. I can see you did it. I see those scars that you have right now. Don't worry, you're going to be just fine. I had this one done, and I danced and everything. It was really cool, So talking about a man on the street, but people who've been through it, if you're walking around in shorts, they go, hey, I had another person who had it done too. Hey, did you get bit by a snake, or did you get your ACL redone? I mean, it's funny how you do meet people people like that who are in the know, but those are supportive people too. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that. How do you think sharing about your knee is going to open up to other things and make it easier to share other stuff?
Uh, for me, it's just realizing rather than stalling
Mm,
in a spot, um, because I don't want to ask for help.
mm-hmm.
I don't want to feel my feelings. I don't want to share my fears. Um, by doing those things in a supportive atmosphere, I can move through it so much more quickly in a good way. There's one of my pups.
There they are. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And so
And
tell me.
I know how it's really, because it really ties into some stuff that's been coming up in the Enchanted Circle about having people move through their feelings,
Mhm.
really feeling them. And it's amazing, even people who've done it a couple of times and gone through their feelings and gotten to the other side and seen, just how great it can be. Once you really run up against something again, you need to have that support. You need to have maybe somebody tell you again,
Yeah.
have you sat with those feelings yet? Or what are you feeling?
Mhm.
I've heard you say it hundreds of times, and it's so true. It's really true. And it does start with vulnerability. You don't need to go and tell everybody everything, but you need to be vulnerable
Mhm.
to the feelings, to even start to feel the feelings. And that's the beginning. That's the beginning of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's awesome. Um, how does your future self uh, do vulnerability? Like when you imagine 5 years, is sort of openness, and we have this vision of her. How does she do vulnerability?
Um, she does it quickly and easily because she doesn't even have to step up
Mhm.
onto a curb or over a crack or anything. It's just part of her being. It's part of her being to be vulnerable, and that's such a good thing, because another thing that came up in the workshop was awareness, and can't have awareness if you're not vulnerable either. I mean, you just can't. Um,
Yes.
and we've talked about this before in a different sense. Even
Mhm.
with martial arts, you can't counter an attack unless you invite somebody. So you have to say, I'm vulnerable. You
Yes.
want to present vulnerable so you can do your technique. If you're
Mhm.
trying to hide, well, you can't really do your technique very well. You want to say, hey, why don't you hit me right here? So you invite that. So you have an idea what's coming as well.
Yes.
So that
Absolutely.
is it. So inviting, it's inviting vulnerability and inviting the feelings, the empathy that come with it. I see her more as inviting it,
Mm.
rather than kind of tiptoeing around going, oh, okay, all right, I'll do that.
Yeah. Let's just put my toe in, right? She just
Yeah,
dives
yeah.
into it, invites it. I love that. Just for listeners, because I think it's important to hear these in all different kind of aspects, but say more about how you have to be vulnerable to have awareness. As you mentioned that as you were saying it.
Yeah, because if you're not fully vulnerable, I don't think you're fully open 360 degrees to whatever situations, circumstances you find yourself in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really it's extremely important. I know I keep bringing up martial arts, but we used to do free attacks where you'd have it wouldn't be a set attack, it would be a number of attackers coming at
Mm.
you, and you'd have to, and the rule there was you treat the one as many and the many as
Mm.
one, and that's the complete 365 degrees. So you have to deal with them one by one, but you
Mm-hmm.
treat that one person as the many, and then the many is one, and it works. You'd be surprised, but that's the exact same thing, 360 degrees. So you don't just focus on one thing, everything.
I love that. Amazing. Any other words of wisdom or things on your heart that you want to share today?
Oh, I feel like we had a
Me
really good
too.
podcast today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for being vulnerable again and sharing this moment in your journey with us, because it's super powerful. And I know somebody listening is going to be like, oh, okay. Yeah, I need to do that.
No, exactly. Because I've felt the same way listening to podcasts before like this. It's like, ooh, that's me.
Yeah. Yay. Awesome. Well, thank you. And thank you all for listening. Make sure to come back and check out what else is awesome in Mia's life next time.
Thank you for joining us on the Law of Attraction Manifesting Success Stories show. To learn more about enrolling in the Enchanted Circle, go to cassieparks.com.